I am Gabriel, the voice of the Almighty, his messenger, his sword. The duty I carry is one that spans millennia, yet never has it been heavier than on this day. The rapture has come, and the earth lies in ruins, a world where the faithful have ascended, and the damned have begun to feast upon the remains of what once was. But the end is not yet complete, for in the shadow of the rapture, an even greater darkness stirs. The beast, known to men as the devil, has risen. I faced him in the ruins of a city that once teemed with life, now nothing more than a battlefield where the ground is soaked with blood and ash. His form was a grotesque mockery of the divine, his wings vast and leathery, his eyes burning with the souls of the damned, his laughter a cruel echo that shook the very foundations of the earth. Our battle was fierce, our clash shaking the heavens and tearing at the seams of reality itself. His strength was overwhelming, his hatred a palpable force that gnawed at my resolve. But I fought with all the power granted to me by the Almighty, my sword blazing with the holy fire of heaven. Every strike was met with a parry, every blow a thunderous roar that sent shockwaves across the barren land. But then, from the depths of the abyss, I felt it, a cold wind, a shiver of malice that ran deeper than even the beast's fury. And then they emerged, the fallen, the angels who had once stood beside me in the glory of heaven, now twisted and corrupted, their beauty marred by the darkness they had embraced when they followed Lucifer into rebellion. Their wings, once radiant, were now tattered and black, their faces twisted into masks of rage and despair. They came not as allies to be reasoned with, but as predators, eager to tear me apart and deliver my soul to the one they now served. The ground beneath me shook as the fallen descended, surrounding me in a circle of death. Their eyes burned with a hunger that spoke of eons spent in torment, waiting for this moment of retribution. I could see their forms flickering, as though the darkness within them threatened to consume even the remnants of their once holy essence. As the fallen closed in, the beast roared with laughter, a sound so terrible that it felt as though the sky itself would crack. "Gabriel," he hissed, his voice a snake's whisper. "You are outnumbered, outmatched. Your time is over. This world belongs to me, and so does your soul. But I am Gabriel, the sword of the Lord, and I do not fall so easily." Even as the fallen advanced, I held my ground, my sword glowing brighter as I called upon the last reserves of my strength. I would not surrender. I could not. The Almighty's will must be done, even if it meant my end. Yet just as the darkness began to close in, the sky above us erupted in a blaze of light. A beam of pure, blinding brilliance pierced through the clouds, and with it came a sound, a clarion call, like the blast of 1,000 trumpets. The light expanded, driving back the shadows, and from that light they descended. The archangels, the warriors of heaven, led by Michael himself. Michael, the right hand of the Almighty, the greatest of the angels, descended upon the battlefield like a falling star. His wings were vast and golden, his armor gleaming with divine power, and in his hand he held the sword that had vanquished countless enemies of heaven. Behind him, the other archangels followed, their presence a wave of pure holiness that drove back the darkness. Michael landed beside me, his gaze fixed on the beast who snarled in defiance. "Gabriel," he said, his voice calm yet filled with an unshakable authority. "We are with you, brother. We will not let you fall." With renewed strength I rose beside Michael, my sword once again blazing with the fire of heaven. The fallen, who had moments ago been so eager to tear me apart, now hesitated, their confidence shaken by the arrival of their former brethren. Michael stepped forward, his sword raised high, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. "You who have fallen," Michael's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You who have turned your back on the light, know that this is your final chance. Stand down, or be cast into the abyss for all eternity." But the fallen were beyond redemption. Their hatred for the light, for all that was good and holy, had consumed them utterly. With a collective shriek, they surged forward, their wings beating the air with a fury that shook the heavens. And then the battle began in earnest. The clash of swords rang out, the light of our weapons illuminating the darkness like lightning in a storm. I fought beside Michael, our blades carving through the ranks of the fallen, each strike a hymn of holy fire. The other archangels spread out, engaging the enemy with a ferocity that turned the tide of the battle. The air was thick with the scent of burning ash and the metallic tang of blood, both mortal and divine. The beast, seeing his advantage slipping away, unleashed a roar of fury that shook the earth to its core. He charged, his immense form blotting out the sky, his claws outstretched to tear us apart, but Michael was ready. With a cry that echoed through the heavens, he met the beast head-on, their swords clashing with a force that sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. As they fought, I turned my attention to the fallen, who were now driven back by the combined might of the Archangels. But even in retreat, they fought with a desperate ferocity, their claws and blades seeking to bring us down with them. I slashed through their ranks, my sword a blur of motion, each strike sending another soul to the abyss. But there were too many, and I could feel my strength waning. "Gabriel!" Michael's voice cut through the chaos, and I turned to see him locked in a deadly struggle with the beast. Their swords clashed again and again, sparks flying with each impact, but the beast was relentless. Even Michael, the strongest of us all, was struggling to hold his ground. The fallen, sensing their master's struggle, renewed their assault, and I felt their claws tearing at my wings, their blades biting into my flesh. But I could not falter. I would not. With a final surge of strength, I broke free of their grasp, driving them back with a wave of holy fire. But it was then that the beast struck. With a roar that shook the heavens, he brought his sword down upon Michael with all the strength of the abyss. The blow was devastating, and Michael staggered, his sword falling from his grasp. The beast, sensing victory, raised his weapon for the killing blow. But I was faster. With a cry that echoed through the battlefield, I threw myself between Michael and the beast, my sword raised to meet the blow. The impact was like nothing I had ever felt, a force so great that it drove me to my knees, my sword shattering beneath the beast's strike. The pain was overwhelming, a burning agony that tore through my body, but I did not fall. I could not. Michael was still there, still fighting, and as long as he stood, I would stand beside him. But the beast was not finished. With a snarl of rage, he struck again, and this time, the blow sent me flying across the battlefield. I hit the ground hard, my wings shattered, my body broken. The world spun around me, the sounds of battle fading into a dull roar. I struggled to rise, but my strength was gone. I could feel the darkness closing in, the cold grip of death reaching for me. But even as I lay there, broken and bleeding, I knew that I could not give up. The Almighty's will must be done, no matter the cost. And then, just as the darkness threatened to take me, I saw it. A light, brighter than anything I had ever seen, descending from the heavens. It was Michael, his body surrounded by a halo of divine power, his wounds healing before my eyes. The other archangels gathered around him, their swords raised, their eyes burning with the fire of heaven. With a cry that echoed across the battlefield, Michael charged the beast, his sword blazing with a light so bright that it drove back the shadows. The beast roared in fury, but he was no match for the combined might of the archangels. Their swords struck as one, driving the beast back, their light searing his flesh, their power overwhelming his darkness. The fallen, seeing their master defeated, scattered in terror, their forms dissolving into the shadows. The battlefield fell silent, the air thick with the scent of burning flesh and the metallic tang of blood. The beast, his body broken, his power shattered, let out one final terrible roar before he was driven back into the abyss, the chasm closing over him with a deafening crash. When it was over, the archangels gathered around me, their faces grim. Michael knelt beside me, his hand glowing with a soft, healing light as he placed it over my wounds. The pain ebbed away, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. "Gabriel," Michael said, his voice soft, "you fought bravely, but this is not the end. The beast will rise again, and when he does, we must be ready." I nodded, my strength slowly returning. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The beast had been driven back, his forces scattered, but the darkness he had unleashed upon the world still lingered, like a poison spreading through the veins of the earth. The sky above us remained dark, the once vibrant colors of dawn now replaced by a sickly, unnatural twilight that seemed to seep into everything it touched. I rose slowly, my body still aching from the battle, but the healing light of Michael's touch had restored enough of my strength to stand. The other archangels, their armor battered but their spirits unbroken, stood around us, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of further threat. But for now, the battlefield was quiet, the only sounds the distant cries of the Forsaken as they fled into the shadows. Michael's gaze met mine, and in his eyes I saw the weight of the responsibility we bore. "We have delayed the inevitable, Gabriel," he said, his voice heavy with the burden of knowledge. "The beast will return, and when he does, he will be stronger, more determined. He will not rest until he has claimed this world and every soul within it. I nodded, knowing the truth of his words. The final battle, the one spoken of in the ancient prophecies, was drawing near. The beast would gather his forces, and the armies of heaven would be called upon to stand against him once more. But this time, the stakes would be higher than ever before. The fate of all creation hanging in the balance. "We must return to heaven," Michael continued, his voice resolute. "The Almighty will need to know of what has transpired here, and we must prepare for what is to come. The time of judgment is near, and we must be ready." As he spoke, I felt a strange sensation, a pull, as if something deep within the earth was calling out to me. I turned my gaze downward, to the place where the beast had been driven back into the abyss, and I saw it, a faint glow, like the last embers of a dying fire flickering at the edge of the chasm. The sight filled me with a deep, unsettling dread, for I knew what it meant. The beast was not dead, merely waiting, biding his time until he could rise again. But there was nothing more we could do here, not now. The battle was over, and we had won, but the war would continue. I turned away from the chasm, away from the darkness that still lingered there, and focused on the light that awaited us in heaven. Michael raised his hand, and with a single commanding gesture, the skies above us parted, revealing a path of pure light leading back to the throne of the Almighty. One by one, the Archangels ascended, their wings carrying them upward into the light, until only Michael and I remained on the battlefield. "You have done well, Gabriel," Michael said, his voice filled with the warmth of brotherly affection. "Rest now and prepare yourself. The time will come when we will need you again, and when it does, we will stand together, as we always have." With that, he extended his hand, and I took it, allowing him to help me rise into the air. Together we ascended, leaving behind the desolate battlefield and the world that had become a stage for the final act of the great cosmic drama. As we rose higher, the darkness below grew distant, the light of heaven growing ever closer, until at last, we passed through the veil and emerged into the radiant glory of the Almighty's domain. In the days that followed, I rested, my wounds healing under the gentle care of the celestial beings who served in the halls of heaven. But even as my strength returned, I could not shake the feeling of unease that had settled deep within my soul. The vision of the beast's eyes, burning with hatred and malice, haunted my thoughts, a reminder that our victory was only temporary. The other archangels, too, were preparing for the coming storm. Michael led the charge, organizing the armies of heaven, rallying the angels to stand ready for the final confrontation. There was no question now. The prophecies were clear. The final battle was coming, and when it did, there would be no more second chances, no more delays. The fate of all creation would be decided in a single, cataclysmic struggle between the forces of good and evil. And I would be there at the forefront, standing beside my brothers and sisters, ready to do what must be done to ensure that the light prevailed over the darkness. But until that day arrived, we could only wait, watch, and prepare. The beast was gathering his strength, and somewhere, deep within the shadows of the earth, he was plotting his next move. The darkness was spreading, creeping across the world like a shadow that could not be outrun. And when the final trumpet sounded, when the last seal was broken, the world would know the true meaning of terror. As I stand now at the edge of heaven, looking out over the world below, I feel the weight of what is to come. The war between light and darkness, good and evil, is not a story told in the distant past. It is happening now, and each of us has a role to play. The beast will rise again, and when he does, the world will need champions of the light, those who are willing to stand up and fight for what is right. This is not the end, but the beginning of the end. The day of reckoning approaches, and when it comes, there will be no mercy, no second chances, only the final judgment. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the end times. If you felt the tension, if you experienced the fear, if you found yourself holding your breath in the dark, then I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow PK Booksmarts on all social platforms for more tales that delve into the eerie, the unsettling, and the unknown. Until next time, keep your lights on and your faith strong.